Begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, and Daily Trust leads with IPOB forces residents off streets in Southeast. There were differences of opinions, so to speak, yesterday on the front pages of some of the dailies yesterday, saying that there may be some kind of crack in the rank and file of IPOB, given that someone had said no, this sit at home is not going to happen because of this or because of that. But this is what you have here. Of course, that didn't come without consequences. Trapped passenger, 3 buses set ablaze in Imo. Oh my, that's what you have right there. And you see some of the effects, pictures, and all of that on the front page. One of the writers also says students miss NECO exams. That is one of the consequences. 2 killed in bloody clash in Newi. Sit-at-home order observed in Aba, ignored in Umuahia. Find that story on page 5 of the paper this morning, as well as right under the nameplate, kidnappers on rampage, abduct commissioner in Niger, kidnap pastor, wife 28, and kill 15, sack 14 communities in Sokoto. Kidnap pastor, wife, 28 others in Kwara. That's what you have on page 4 of the paper this morning. So we have stories coming from Niger, Sokoto, and Kwara states, all talking about kidnappers this morning. And right above the headline, the main story, PDP crisis. Governors fail to agree on Secondus' strike, Secondus' sack. Stories on page 25. Court orders forfeiture of Okorocha's property, and how bandits abducted Niger commissioner, tormented wife and baby. That story is on page 3 of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Okay.
Well, let's quickly run through the leadership, but we're going to come back to it right now, right away. Maybe I should ask you to go ahead, Ayo, because we do have a guest with us here in Abuja, and we're going to be introducing him shortly. He's going to be going through some of the papers with us this morning to focus on some of the headlines. But while we get that set, I am going to ask you to please take the next paper.
Well, thank you for giving me that opportunity, Marco, because I just realized that there is a very heartbreaking piece on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. 9 Nigerians die of malaria every hour. On the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. And this is definitely something to bring to the attention of the authorities. Well, it was said by the minister. You may want to find out which minister said it on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The story you'll find on page 30 of the Daily Trust. 9 Nigerians die of malaria every hour. Is right there on the right column on your screen. And if this happens, 9 Nigerians die of malaria every hour. Just yesterday, we were, having a conversation around the cholera outbreak, and we were told that 60 Nigerians have died as a result of a cholera outbreak in Katsina State. And if that has happened, and we know that Nigerians die every hour of malaria, so then, what are we doing? Have we given us significant attention to malaria, which is one of the top 5 killer diseases in the world, as we are giving to COVID-19, which many people would say is not as, it doesn't look or feel like it's as deadly as malaria. It is something that can be treated, but then this is the situation that we find, ourselves handling right now. And I'm hoping that the authorities will be able to tell us what can be done to also nip this in the bud. All right, so while we're waiting for that, the sit-at-home order is also the lead story on the front page of the Daily Times newspaper this morning. Okay, Makwe, you ready now? You ready?
Yes, we are. Thank you so much, Aya, for holding fort. But let's quickly take a look at what leadership has on the front page. Before I do that, let's quickly introduce our guest. We're being joined this morning by Mr. Akeregha, who is a member of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us.
All right.
Look at this on the front page of leadership newspapers. Niger commissioner abducted, joins 238 others in bandits' den. 136 Islamia pupils, 59 farmers, 33 others still in captivity. Kidnappers strike in Kwara, abduct 9, demand 30 million naira ransom. Well, that's leadership newspapers, just in case they're wondering where we are. I don't know. I think we saw stories like this yesterday in the headlines, but leadership has stayed on this story in terms of the children who have been kidnapped from the Islamia school, and now it looks like it doesn't matter who you are. A commissioner in Niger State has now been abducted. What are your thoughts on this story?
Well, good morning, Nigerians. I'm sure that very many people have gone beyond a state of shock now. We're actually in a state of anomaly in the country right now. The president is away, he's receiving he's on medical vacation, as we are told. In very serious climb, the president will rush back home to address the situation. But it will appear as if those of us who are outside of government and those in government are already used to the situation. And we have found ourselves in a helpless situation. Every day, the newspaper headlines relishes with stories of kidnapping, murder, assassinations, and all of that. It is sad, and at a time that we are faced with an uneven educational advantage between the South and North. When all efforts are being made to bridge that gap, we are now seeing many schools in the North shut down. Pupils are in the bushes. Well, I won't blame the security forces. They are doing the most that they can, to intervene. But clearly, we have been overwhelmed as a country, and this government, clearly do not have a new strategy to deal with the situation. Eric Cleaver says that you cannot, no, sorry, that's Lord Denning, who is the father of modern law, a British jurist, did say that you cannot do something, the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. So clearly it's either this government has not evolved fresh strategies to deal with these issues, or for me really as a journalist, sometimes I have a feeling that there's some kind of complacency and collaboration on the part of some highly placed persons. I do not, if you ask the police to go after bandits and kidnappers, only the police, they'll get these guys out. So, not to talk of the combined military, civil defense, everybody. No, I don't want to believe that our security forces have been overwhelmed. I just think that there's something that we are not doing right, or something that is being hidden from the rest of us that we do not know. But who stands to benefit? For me, Nigerians are losing, and the state is losing, because any country that does not educate its citizens clearly is on the path of self-destruct.
It is highly significant that you point out the fact that a lot of schools are being shut down. Don't forget that when the president did leave the country, part of the reason why he traveled was because of the education summit.
Oh, absolutely.
I was supposed to be getting some monies, to invest in our education sector.
Absolutely.
He recognizes the importance of education, but when we look at how security is impacting negatively on education, there are huge questions about the strategy which we adopted.
Absolutely, really. Absolutely. The president, in fact, for some of us, I was sitting with some colleagues and we were discussing the president's participation in the educational summit in the United States, where you have the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Boris Johnson, and Uhuru Kenyatta, who is the president of Kenya. I think both of them organized the summit. And then the president was there. Up to now, I do not, apart from what came out, that the president has decided to up budgetary allocation to education by about 50%. That's just all it is. But I'm surprised that nobody
we're
asked the
also
president.
getting a grant, I think. We're also
yes, some support to all the participating countries.
Indeed.
But if the money comes and pupils and students are in their homes, how do you utilize those funds? So I'm surprised that the president was not asked what is happening back home to the educational institutions. There's this Safe School initiative that
Indeed.
was suggested by the United States, and there was so much money. There was a basket of donor funds to implement that. Up to now, nobody knows what has happened, and the situation has gotten worse. I feel very sad as a parent myself, because you every day you watch television, you see women weeping, rolling on the ground for their children, innocent children that they had just sent to school to get basic education. And the universities are not even spared, and you have seen what happened to some universities, selected universities. So it's a crisis situation, and I'm wondering why we have not, as a government, the government has not deemed it fit to declare a state of emergency in the education sector across the country, not just in the north, because it has got to that level.
Huge questions in that regard. But let's take a look at another story right on the front page. Cholera, 22 states, FCTA record 31,425 cases, 816 deaths. Wow. It would be one thing to check the number of deaths we've recorded, since COVID broke out, because we always get the status update from the NCDC. This many deaths with cholera in such a short while, because we know we usually record this about the rainy season time, but this is very difficult to assimilate, so to speak. Are you finding it difficult as well?
Well, as I said earlier, it doesn't appear as if anything is shocking to Nigerians anymore. We do not prepare for anything as a country. It's sad. We have so much resources in this country. We can deal with all of this. These are very basic issues of health. Cholera is every year, as you rightly mentioned. When we approach the rainy season, or we're in the middle of it, you see cholera outbreak. Usually it starts from some parts of the north, and then it spreads on, and now we're in the FCT. It's here with us. So if you look at the figures so far, I do not think that within a month of the cholera outbreak, the number of deaths, I think it far outweighs those of the COVID. So it's appalling at the same time, just as it is shocking, because one, we have the Ministry of Health, we have the Ministry of Water Resources, we have so much water around us, there's no clean water for anyone to drink. The government complains about the potentials of having earthquake in the country, because everybody appears to be sinking boreholes. So what is the official intervention to stem that? We do not have a strategy to provide water for citizens. Even in the FCT, how many homes have direct-to-home supply of public water? For me, where I live is a borehole. And I was asking some of our colleagues yesterday, 10 of us, about 8 or so, rely on borehole. So if at this level, as an average citizen, you rely on borehole, what about the rural dwellers, people in the farmlands, a lot of people in IDP homes and all of that? And so this is where cholera outbreak actually starts from, and then it spreads on and on. For me, it is just a general situation of failure. That's just what we have. And so now we have elections in 2023. I think these are some of the very fundamental issues that electorates should be asking those who are seeking to represent us at that level. What will you do in terms of public water supply to homes? What will you do in terms of establishing health facilities? The president is away now, attending hospitals in the UK. For 6 years, we can't even build one world-class hospital. So these are just basic challenges, and it's a collective failure of those who are in government right now.
Well, let's leave it there for leadership newspapers. Ayo.
Yeah, quick one through the Vanguard newspaper, Mr. Akeregha, good morning. No end in sight to crisis in APC-PDP. That's what the Vanguard newspaper leads with this morning. And a number of riders right there on the front page. You can do the choosing yourself. It's 2023 is what? Tomorrow? or so it will seem, because it's like the only thing anyone is listening to right now. If you check through the riders, one of them is pointing to the fact that it has to do with 2023. What do you make of this? On the one hand, the ruling party is having its crisis, and the main opposition party, which is supposed to also be performing a democratic function, so to speak, is busy infighting.
I think Nigerians have been left with a difficult option of having to choose between the devil and the deep blue sea. You have the APC in power, APC is in crisis. You have the PDP, the ruling party. It's having a leadership that is a caretaker committee for a ruling party, and since the APC came to power, they've not held a credible national convention where all members of the APC will come together to take decisions. The PDP has, and the PDP is preparing for one, but the PDP itself is also engrossed in very deep internal crisis. Now, why are the parties in crisis? The parties are in crisis because there is no common understanding, there is no political ideology. Basic principles of political science talks about, a framework of understanding for people to come together to agree on certain sets of rules politically that will deliver democracy dividends to the electorates. That is just the entire essence of setting up political parties. For the PDP that was in power for about 16 years before it left power in 2015, it talked about power to the people. All right, power to the people, to what extent? That remains clearly undefined. And then even for members of the PDP itself, you see the internal bickerings and squabbles. For the APC, it is worse because the APC saw all the loopholes in the PDP, and during the administration of former President Goodluck Jonathan, that most people thought was even inept. For the APC, they said President Jonathan, who was the head of that government, was clueless. That was the catchword at the time. But what we have seen, even with the APC, appears to be clueless, more clueless, and more clueless. They just do not have any answer to anything, even the most basic. Where we were in 2015, it is left for anyone, even the supporters of the APC. I have a lot of friends in that political party, and they have agreed with me that even their own party has failed. So it is just a gathering of people who want to grab a piece of the national cake. They are not interested in the welfare of Nigerians, whether the APC. For the PDP, yes, they've learned their lesson. I am just hoping or thinking that maybe seeing the pitfalls that they had and what the APC have also done, maybe there's some kind of repentance. But the evidence on the ground does not suggest that even the PDP has repented. So that is of greater worry to people, to most Nigerians, as we approach the 2023 elections. And that is why it has also become very urgent for private candidates, independent candidates, for the law to come up for independent candidates, so that Nigerians can actually have options. As a journalist, for example, if I want to run for local government chairman in Delta State or even the governor of the state, I do not have the kind of resources that they talk about.
Well,
the political party say you must bring 15 billion for the president and then for government. It is just crazy, So these are the issues.
We have to thank you for your interventions this morning. Thank you so much for shedding a little more light on them. Mr. Akeregha is a member of the Nigeria Guild of Editors. Thank you for your time this morning.
It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Sunrise Daily continues in a moment. Please stay with us.